Welcome to another OU Insider Under the Visor Postgame podcast powered by Ollipop. Parker, take it away.
We're cracking a crisp apple tonight, bros. The seasonal flavor at Ollipop, one of 16 delicious offerings by the team at Ollipop, which is now available, at least in Tropical Punch and Lemon Lime, in 7.5 ounce cans. So if you don't want to commit to a whole 12 ounces, you can pick up a 4-pack of Tropical Punch or Lemon Lime in small, sawed-off 7.5 ounce cans. Regardless, if you haven't tried Ollipop yet, would highly recommend it. DrinkOllipop.com is where you can check them out. Soda, real soda, folks, with real health benefits. The team at Ollipop has managed to make a soda that is good for you. And if you don't believe me, go read up, do your research on the product that they've managed to put together. Again, drinkollipop.com is where you can get all the information on these things right here. I know nobody on the Spotify side or listening on the strictly audio side has a frame of reference for what I'm holding up to the camera right now. Only the YouTube listeners can see this. But this is crisp apple. It's moved into my top 5 as far as the flavors are concerned. Let us know. Let us know in the comments what your favorite flavor of Ollipop is. But if you haven't checked them out yet, you can use promo code CHAMPU20 at drinkollipop.com to get 20% off your first order.
Very, very good. Very good. Yeah, go ahead and we want to just get out the other.
No, let's dive into this game.
Okay.
At least let's dive into the knee-jerk reactions, because it's what people are tuning in for. We got a couple bills we got to pay later on down the line. But look, all in all, fellas, I mean, a win is a win. But as we were talking about before we pressed record, Oklahoma played about as poorly as they could have played today while still staying in the win column.
Yeah, I mean, they're not the only ones that struggle today. Texas, I think when you look at it and you take away the fact that Oklahoma struggled mightily, and I got to tell you, I think you hate to pin it on one guy because it's a team game, right? But if Zach Smith hits those 2 field goals, it changes a lot because, and I said this on the instant analysis, and this is why, because therefore, you got a kickoff, and you never know. You may pin him inside the 10. You may get him inside the 15. Therefore, the field position starts to flip a little bit more, right? The game changes. The flow of the game changes. The momentum isn't so much on UCF's side because you're missing field goals and they're stopping you. You're actually putting points up on the board. And maybe Oklahoma runs away with it at that point. That said, it didn't happen. Zach Smith did miss the field goals. And as good as Oklahoma's defense started with the 4 punts, they couldn't take advantage of it. They went from the potential 13-0 start in those first 4 drives to 7-7 on drive number 5. 7-7. Like, that to me says everything you need to know about where Oklahoma's head was at today. It was lost back in Dallas. And I think Texas was lost in Dallas too for different reasons, because they obviously had that they gave the game in their minds. They gave the game away, even though Oklahoma led for most of the game. It was an emotional downer for them. It was an emotional upper for Oklahoma. And then you add the bye week to it. You add the fact that it was 90 degrees on the field, 95 degrees on the field, which UCF is totally used to compared to Oklahoma now, because Oklahoma hasn't been playing in weather like that, nor have they been practicing in weather like that. And then you have the mental aspects, everything. Perfect storm for UCF to come in. You had the distractions of the Dylan Gabriel, Levy stuff. Dylan Gabriel mostly, because that's all anybody wanted to talk about. And again, perfect storm. And it's not an excuse. It's facts. Oklahoma didn't show up and UCF did. That's where That it stops right there. Oklahoma did not show up. UCF did. And that's why you had a nail biter at the end. A nail biter that should not even taken place. And that's not to discredit the Knights, but it shouldn't have taken place.
Well, I think both things can be true, honestly. I think UCF is a little better than what their record has shown and what their season has been so far. I mean, they were without John Rice Plumlee for, essentially every part of their Big 12 schedule up to this point. But the reality is, whether you look at the stats, and that's OU outgaining them in total yards, that's OU outgaining them in rushing yards, passing yards, way more first downs. UCF was only 4-16 on third downs. The reality is we just saw an OU team today that didn't take advantage of opportunities. Brandon, kind of to what you were saying, they didn't take advantage of opportunities today. And I think Zach Schmidt is the obvious thing in terms of the missed field goals. But I even think about the Jaron Kanik unsportsmanlike conduct penalty when OU
Weird call, by
out.
the way. Weird call.
It was a weird call. And I wasn't 100% sure exactly what happened. The whole thing was odd, but whether it was legitimate or not, it was just odd because, or it was really tough because because UCF had it at the 1 and OU completely shut them out on downs 1, 2, and 3. Then UCF got a new set of downs, then the delay of game penalty. The whole thing was weird, but I honestly think OU shuts them out without that penalty. But regardless, the whole thing is weird. And I think the bigger thing for me is I think we were all looking at the running game coming into today. And while some decent fourth quarter runs ended up salvaging, the production for the day, OU had 189 yards on the ground. UCF is one of the worst rushing defenses in the country, and OU's running offense simply never got going until the final few minutes of the fourth quarter. So I think it's one of those weird things. You look around the rest of the country, Texas barely beat Houston today. We've seen a lot of that in college football today, but I think the reality is you wanted to see a better performance after the win against Texas. You wanted to see a better performance, and UCF had opportunities to be in this game. I think you wanted to see OU play better, and that's not what happened today.
I mean, I'll do it, guys. I'll be the glass half full guy here. Yes, Oklahoma did not play good football. Yes, they played, without a doubt, their sloppiest, crappiest game of the year to this point. But they ended up winning the football game. And all in all, I think, and again, maybe this is just the optimist in me, I think this might have been just what the doctor ordered for Oklahoma. And it was funny. I asked Peyton Bowen after the game, man, you guys feel like you needed a win like this, a win that kind of reconciled y'all to the reality and smacked you in the face with it to a certain extent, that you're not invincible. And just because you beat Texas doesn't mean you coast the rest of the way. And Peyton, he said it was one of the shortest answers we've ever gotten from Peyton Bowen. He said, I mean, yeah, that about sums it up. It's just like you said. We did need a win like this, and we needed a game like this. This is a game, as Brent Venables himself said, that the Sooners probably lost a year ago. They put themselves in that many poor positions. They make that many mistakes. They allow that many big plays a year ago, and they go into the fourth quarter down by a possession. They're probably not finding a way to battle back and win that game. So the fact that they did today, admittedly, I think it's fair to acknowledge this shakes a lot of folks' confidence in what Oklahoma can be the rest of the way. But by the same token, you have maintained the margin for error. Because you lose today to UCF, the margin for error is gone. Was it an impressive win? No, but it was a win nonetheless. And down the stretch, you have afforded yourself some margin for error, and you've managed to keep that 0 in the loss column at all costs. So I know it's not a win that anybody's going to be pleased with this week. I know it's not a win that anybody is pleased with as we sit here on Saturday night recording this podcast, but it's a win.
Yeah.
I'll add this real quick, Parker. To your point, TCU made it to the college football national championship last year, and they kind of made a killing on winning games exactly like this.
Yeah, exactly. Which is, and that's, I believe I mentioned this on the radio earlier in the week because I reflected back on TCU's 2022 season. And look, with where Oklahoma's at, yeah, it's a 7-0. It's a 7-0 with one marquee win. And that's really it. There are no other wins on the schedule right now that you would even categorize as above average with the way that, especially Cincinnati losing to Baylor today. I think that is a testament to how far that program has fallen over the span of a few weeks. But that's your marquee win. You haven't really been challenged otherwise up until today. And as you said, Jesse, TCU consistently over the course of that 2022 season just found a way to get it done. They didn't blow anybody out with the exception of Oklahoma and Iowa State. They beat Iowa State pretty bad. But they just won a lot of close football games. And could Oklahoma rip off a 12-1, 13-0 start and then run into a buzzsaw like TCU did when they get pitted against a team that is quite simply more talented than them? Sure, absolutely. I'm not sitting here trying to convince anybody that Oklahoma is on the level of a Georgia or a Michigan right now. By no means am I trying to sell you on that. But this is, to this point, record-wise, and I would say as far as the eye test, is the best team in the Big 12. And in your swan song within this conference, that's good enough in my mind, especially off 6 and 7.
Yeah, I get the half glass full look because I'm kind of there with you. There's the issue I have with that though is that you saw a lot of cracks, right? Today there was a lot of cracks in the armor a little bit today. Things that are fixable, like you can fill those cracks in at some point. But I just saw today issues that maybe can come back to haunt you. Like, let's talk about the run game, for instance. The run game, we've talked about it for 7 weeks now, right? 7 games, and it's been not so much a disaster, but it's been an issue that's held Oklahoma's offense back at times. It held it back against SMU. It held it back today. It held it back against Cincinnati. Those games could have been so much wider of a win had you established the run game and gotten those guys going earlier. But for some odd reason, and I'm not going to point fingers at Levy because there were times that they called perfect pass plays. They weren't executed. Drop passes, a poorly thrown ball, good defense, I guess you could call it, because of lack of cover, not lack of coverage, but lack of pass blocking. Like, things happen to stop the flow of the offense. And maybe the pass blocking's better if you can run the ball because you can't just pin your ears back. And I get there's 2 sides to every story when it comes to that. But it felt like they started to find a little groove starting midway through the third quarter. They had that drive, Jesse Parker, where they just went Marcus Major, Marcus Major, Marcus Major, Marcus Major. Then Marcus Major got a penalty, and then they ran Marcus Major again. And Jesse goes, it's the Marcus Major drive. And they just stopped after that. And I don't understand why you get those running backs in a groove and then you ultimately just go, you know what? We're just going to stop using them. That stuff doesn't make sense to me. Gavin Sawchuk touched the ball. He had the 2 gaffes to start the game, jitters. he doesn't touch the field forever. Jesse, we talked about in the press box, like that dude was non-existent. They were going to Farouk, they were going to Gavin Freeman, they were going to Drake Stoops, then back to Marcus Major, and injured Marcus Major, I might add, instead of putting Gavin Sawchuk out there. They finally did it in the fourth quarter. He ends up with 5 touches on the last drive, and what happens? He got in a groove and he broke a long run. And there are people on Twitter going, oh, he doesn't have any breakaway speed. Look how slow it was. He was jogging. He was jogging, trying to waste time, and he was still pulling away from the dude. Jogging. And I just, when is 2-7 going to get his due, man? When are they just going to go, we're going into this game and we're going to ride 2-7? Because he's that type of back. What is the holdup, guys?
I think that's the weird thing with the running game was through 3 quarters, it was pretty rough. I mean, OU had 57 rushing yards on 19 attempts through the first half.
Yes.
It was really rough. And I think the thing that's frustrating about it is on those 2 scoring drives in the fourth quarter, the one that ended in the Drake Stoops touchdown that gave OU the 1-point lead, Sawchuk had gains of 7, 7, and 8 early in that drive. And then obviously on the one he scored on, it was the 30-yard run, which the running game looks good on those 2 possessions. So why was it so much of a struggle through the first 3 quarters? I think the other thing is that it's clear that this offensive line is still in flux. It just is. And I think McCade Matauer being out hurt, I think they're still trying to figure out what they want to do at that left guard spot. They're still trying to figure out what combinations on this offensive line work. But to me, this seems like it's just so random because, again, the potential was shown in the fourth quarter. And Marcus Major had some good runs on the fourth quarter too.
He did.
But it shows with when you're using Jalil Farouk and Gavin Freeman as legitimate running backs, that you can say that Jalil Farouk needs more touches, and he does. He only had 6 touches today, but he had 3 carries as a running back. They were using him and Gavin Freeman as legitimate running backs. But to me, that doesn't say, oh, we need to get these guys the ball. That tells me this coaching staff, they don't know what to do with this backfield. That's what that tells me. So it's just a weird thing.
Let's keep digging into this backfield picture. But before we do so, let's hit a quick timeout here and give a nod to our sponsors. This episode of the OU Insider Under the Visor Postgame podcast is brought to you in part by Prize Picks, the largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform in North America. They're the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. It's just you against the numbers. So instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Testing your skills on Prize Picks this football season is the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Moreover, with the Prize Picks reboot policy for your entries, they stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. So for NFL games and college football top 25 matchups, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. That makes Prize Picks the only daily fantasy sports platform with injury insurance. As I look ahead to the NFL slate tomorrow/today, depending on when this podcast hits streaming platforms, I really like the matchup for OU legend Baker Mayfield, the quarterback for my Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I'm probably going to be throwing down an entry on him to exceed his projected passing touchdowns total. Go to prizepicks.com/insider and use code insider for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, prizepicks.com/insider and use code insider for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Now here's Brandon to get you ready for Balloween.
Of course, you had to go there. All right. All right, gentlemen of Sooner Nation, gentlemen across the nation, I have an urgent message for you. This episode is brought to you by Manscaped. The brand that took your balls to space is now launching them into Ultrasphere, introducing the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. Featuring a new cutting-edge design, and next generation dual skin safe blade heads for different shaves. It's pretty much a spaceship to take your boys downstairs to the next level. Join myself and 9 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with the brand new Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra by going to manscaped.com to get 20% off plus free shipping using the promo code OU Insider. Again, go to manscaped.com if you want to get 20% off plus you get free shipping by using the promo code OU Insider. Look, I've used it. I got it in the mail last week. Used it on my chest. I'm not very hairy, but I trimmed it up, nice. You always got to look groomed. You never know. You don't want the hair hanging out of the top of your collar or anything like that. So you got to be groomed up. And it's worked great. No nicks, no bumps, nothing to that extent. Just a really, really good, close, comfortable shave, whatever level you want to do. I've used it. I love it. I'm a big Manscaped guy. So all you have to do if you want to be like me, and again, 9 million others, go to manscaped.com, type in the promo code 20 OU Insider to get 20% off plus free shipping. High tech for low places and mid places, Manscaped. All right. There we go. You're
back
Parker,
to the
you are
backfield
muted.
conversation.
Okay. Hey, I do want to add on. You brought something up about the not understanding the O-line not being solidified at the guard position. I have one idea for him, and it's worked pretty well every time they've done this. You know where I'm going with this? Play Caden freaking Green more.
Brandon was shouting that in the press box.
It's so annoying. Like we're watching this happen, and like we don't show emotion, but like we all look at each other and going, what are they doing? Like they see the struggles at guard. You put number 70 in there, and things magically fix themselves.
Imagine that.
Side.
Imagine that. Now listen, hand up here. I'm as much of a Caden Green fan as there is. I did not expect that dude, all things considered, with the state of Bill Bedenbaugh's room heading into the year. I did not expect that dude was going to be the first member of the 2023 recruiting cycle to make a start on the offensive side of the ball at the University of Oklahoma. But not only has he done that as of today, but as you said, Brandon, he doesn't just look like another dude out there. He looks like a monster. He looks like a steamroller.
Doesn't make sense. Go ahead, Jesse.
The reality is Savion Byrd at left guard just hasn't worked out. It just hasn't. It hasn't worked out. And I think that's the thing is you take Caden Green, who is naturally just a really athletic, talented dude, but he's played tackle most of his life. I think it's both. It's more of a praise of how good he is and how disappointing the other options have been at left guard, particularly Savion Byrd. But I think it's just one of those weird things that I think some of those good rushes in the fourth quarter are good. They're promising, but it's two things. One, OU still only averaged 4.1 yards per carry. And you look across the college football landscape and you look at someone like Ollie Gordon in Oklahoma State, who is just absolutely tearing up opposing defenses right now. OU hasn't had that kind of guy. And two, the reality is, as impressive as Gavin Sawchuk was in the fourth quarter, it was rough going for the entire backfield to the first three quarters. And OU didn't have Tawi Walker, who has objectively been the best running back through 6 weeks. So it's like I am weirdly more confused about the running back room now than I have been at any point this season, which is a weird thing to say.
Yeah, and it's one of those deals where you can't just point the finger at one position group, one player, one entity. Even like the offensive line has had their struggles in run blocking, and the backfield as a whole, again, not specific to any individual player, they have had issues finding the creases. making guys miss, making stuff happen. We finally saw a little bit of that today down the stretch between Marcus Major and Gavin Sawchuk. But for the most part, man, there's just been nothing exciting about the Sooner backfield. Your game, what's been most conducive to the flourishing of your offense to this point in the year, is running Tawi Walker downhill for 4 and 5 yards at a time. That's been the Sooners' ground game at its best all season. And that's not a championship level run game, guys. It's a run game that'll probably get you to double-digit wins in the Big 12. But like it or not, whether it's fair or unfair, expectations for this Oklahoma football team have, in the eyes of many, been drastically expanded over the last 2 weeks since that victory over Texas. The expectations that folks had for this team through 5 games are not the expectations that they have for them right now. So if you're going to fulfill those expectations, those adjusted expectations, then you got to figure something out in the backfield. And that just hasn't happened yet for OU. Maybe it started to happen in that fourth quarter with the way that Gavin Sawchuk popped off a couple of big runs. But I don't know, man. We've been fooled before. It's like you finally see the light with the backfield, and then it's boom, back to chaos.
Yeah, they don't. It's like the game ends, and that's what it's been every week this season with the run game. It's like, okay, that game ended, and it's like somebody from Men in Blacks walked up and just went like, shine the light. They put their glasses on and went, look into here, boop, and like everything's been erased from Levy and DeMarco's head on who's been good, and Beadenbo's head of who's been good at doing what and how and whatever. And it's crazy because that's like the rotations have just been inconsistent. And I think that is where the trouble lies more than anything else, because if you think about it, over the years, what has Oklahoma done notoriously? They've had a solid rotation, whether they've had 2 running backs, whether they've had 1. The running backs knew their roles. Javonte Barnes knew his role last year behind Eric Gray. Eric Gray knew his role behind Kennedy Brooks. Kennedy Brooks knew his role behind Rodney Anderson and Sermon before he ultimately became the guy. And so on and so forth. Joe Mixon, Samaje Perine took a backseat to Mixon when Mixon finally was cleared and he got his legs underneath him in 2015 and 2016. Those things happen. But they knew. And I think at the end of the day, nobody knows right now. Nobody knows. Not the running backs, not the linemen, not Dylan Gabriel, not the coaches. And because of that, the inconsistencies, the nobody getting in a rhythm, none of that has been able to take place. If I'm Oklahoma, you saw what Sawchuk did today. He starts and he gets 15 to 20 touches next Saturday. See what he can do. Okay, if he starts to struggle and you don't get those 15 to 20 touches, by 13 touches, you're seeing it's not working, go to somebody else and see if they can't be the hot hand. But let the players know this is your dude that you're going to be blocking for, because it's not just a rhythm for the running back, it's a rhythm for the line, right? Like they have to understand how fast they're going to go through the line. They have to, because everybody hits holes differently. It's just the way it is. So it's a rhythm across the board, and they have none in the run game. The one person that has rhythm is Dylan Gabriel. And that's because they know he's going to run off the cuff. There's not a ton of design runs. Am I wrong on this?
I don't think you're wrong.
No, there's... Go ahead, Parker.
No, Jesse, by all means, jump right in.
There's no, Brandon, you're right. There's no rhythm, but I think the main thing that I took away from today, there just wasn't a whole lot downfield. I mean, OU had 5 plays of 15 yards or more today.
Mm-hmm.
UCF had 9.
Andrew
There's
Anthony.
just so I think like to me, sort of, it's not necessarily related to the run game, although I think it's a part of it. Like my other takeaway from today was this offense is going to miss Andrew Anthony. It just is. And I think, I mean, you look at the big plays they had today. Obviously, Nick Anderson proved today what I think everybody else was screaming through the first 6 weeks, that he deserved more snaps on the field. But outside of the 2 touchdowns to Nick Anderson, OU had 2 other pass plays that went 15 yards or more. One of them went to Nick Anderson, and one of them went to Jaden Gibson. There's nothing down the field to Jalil Farouk. There's nothing down the field to any other receiver. So, like, to me, I think I thought the no rhythm thing kind of went through the rest of the team, which is so interesting because OU had 442 total yards today. So it's just kind of a weird mix of things, but I thought the passing game looked uneven outside of Nick Anderson. Again, Jalil Farouk only had 6 touches. Drake Stoops had some really big catches late, but otherwise I thought the passing game was uneven. So I don't know. It's hard to complain too much. And that's the other thing is OU still had 31 points today. That's not horrible, but the whole thing just looked disjointed. And I think it's less about,
I was about to use that exact same word, Jesse. Bingo. Disjointed.
Yeah. I think that's just to wrap it. Like, I think that the takeaway is that there's so much left on the bone. There's so much meat left on the bone. And the reason why they're not getting all of it is because it's disjointed. And thankfully they played UCF today, but I can guarantee you Kansas next week, you can't be so disjointed. They have a better defense and a better offense.
Yes. And I think what I would say about this game today is, again, it is refreshing that they walked away with a win. It is reassuring that they walked away with a win, despite how imperfect this game was on every level. But the harsh reality is you can't play that game today against any opponent you have left on the schedule and expect to win. You cannot. That is not going to happen. But I will say, I want to quickly highlight some good and some bad. And we can expand on each of these things as necessary. You touched on Nick Anderson, Jesse. He is emerging as a legit star. And
get him the ball.
Absent him, I don't know if they win that game today. He has been the go-to guy in the receiving game, not necessarily to the extent as far as quantity of targets that Andrew Anthony was, but much like Peyton Bowen on the defensive side, Nick Anderson has just been a guy that every single time he's gotten the opportunity to make a play, he's made a play. To that same point, Peyton Bowen was huge today, particularly with that late sack. I actually thought the Sooners did a pretty good job, all in all, of getting pressure on John Rice Plumlee.
Ethan Downs.
Yeah, they kept him under duress for the majority of the day. Luke Elzinga, hello. What took so long for them to get that guy back punting the football? He averaged 52 yards today across.
That's really Michael Turk.
Killed it.
He's just in a different uniform.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't quite Turk, but
I know.
He got a lot of, like, his trajectory on the ball is good, gets a lot of elevation on it, and obviously the distance, man.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he came up big today for Oklahoma. And it's weird to sit here and praise the punter, but given how bad Oklahoma's punting situation was through the first 6 games, it was like eye-opening today to watch Luke Elzinga turn in the performance that he turned in.
So at what point do you go on that same line? Why don't you try to give Gavin Marshall a chance at field goal kicking?
Well, and I was just about to turn the page because here's what was bad. Zach Schmidt is not it right now. Like, I don't know what is, and I know Brent Venables said he had a lot of trust in him, a lot of confidence in him. That's fine. It's very clear that Zach Schmidt is up in his own head. He's missed 4 of his last 8 kicks. And when that starts to happen, it's tough for a kicker to get things turned around. And it makes me wonder, like, Reddy Mustafaraj and or Gavin Marshall, are those 2 guys that bad in practice that Venables isn't even opening the door for a competition at kicker? Because, again, this is not going to cut it. leaving points on the board, this is going to come back to bite this team down the road. You cannot have a guy that is, well, I almost said hit or miss, and that's about as literal as it gets. But when he has been really for the entirety of his career as Oklahoma's starting kicker, not just this year, it's been incredibly streaky. It's been a toss-up every time he trots out there, whether the kick is going in or whether it's not. And the first miss today worried me because that was very obviously mishit. And you don't see a kicker mishit a ball like that unless he's got something mental going on in most cases. So that was not great. What was also not great is for the first time all year, Oklahoma did not force any turnovers defensively.
First time.
Yeah. And offensively, for the first time all year, they surrendered multiple sacks and didn't do a tremendous job protecting Dylan Gabriel. They didn't do a terrible job. But again, the standards have been raised. The expectations have been raised. This team is being held accountable on a higher level and on a higher scale than they were before. And so when you see these things, it's more alarming than it probably would have been a month ago.
Mm-hmm. No, you hit on a lot of really good points. I think another good point is another good positive would be the play of Ethan Downs and Trace Ford today. I thought they were phenomenal. I think you can't talk about the pressure they put on John Rice Plumlee without talking about Ethan Downs and Trace Ford. And they were in his face constantly. And again, I'm going to do what I did during the instant reaction analysis with Mr. Brian Clinton, and that is all the Ethan Down haters get in line. You got some apologizing to do. That dude has played unbelievable all 7 games this year. And what does he have? 5, 6 sacks now? Something to that extent? It's 5, right?
4.5 sacks on the year.
4.5. That's what his total was last year through 13 games.
Yeah. He leads the team in sacks, and he's second on the team in tackles for loss.
Well, how many tackles for losses does he have now?
Shoot, I don't have that number in front of me. He had another one today.
Yes.
He has 6 tackles for loss on the year, 4.5 sacks, and
So
4
he
quarterback hurries, which leads the team.
So he has not, in the last 2 seasons, all the Ethan Down haters, I want you to hear this stat line. He has 9 sacks, and he has 18.5 tackles for losses in 2 seasons. Or a year and a half, excuse me, last year and a half. How do you hate on that?
Again, not all
That's
American
unbelievable.
numbers, not all American numbers, but in the context of what Oklahoma has been defensively over the last season and a half, pretty dang stellar.
No, I mean, he's on
Dang
pace
stellar.
for 9 sacks this season. Everybody touted Nick Bonito and Ronnie Perkins when they had those type of numbers as the best edge rushers in the Big 12. Y'all remember that, right? That wasn't too long ago.
Yes, that happened. That happened.
So is Ethan Downs the best edge rusher in the Big 12 right now?
He is.
Where we at? Come on, man.
He's been really good. He had a really big impact, especially in that first quarter. I think on like back-to-back possessions, he was just everywhere. I thought the OU defense again today.
No, but I mean, is he one of the top 2 or 3 edge rushers in the Big 12 right now?
He's upper echelon for sure.
I would say, I agree.
Yeah. Would I be comfortable saying he's number 1? No. But
no, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, objectively, he is upper echelon. You know who
Trace Ford, by the way, his first step, guys.
Yep.
Man,
Sooners
it's
got some
nasty.
talent.
If he can ever get in control.
Sooners got some talent off the edge. By the way, you ever notice who trots onto the field for a ton of money downs?
Yeah,
PJ.
PJ. I'm just going to say PJ.
Pretty much any time there is a gotta have it situation for the Oklahoma defense, it is PJ on the field. And I find that intriguing because outside of those situations, he doesn't, all things considered, get a ton of run. But it's like when they have a play where they truly need to get pressure on the quarterback, he's the one ambling in from off the sideline.
And their most talented outside of PJ, edge rusher. And when I say most talented, the guy with the quickest step, not named PJ, is our Mason Thomas, and he's still hobbled. Like you can see it. It's so visibly there. He has got the biggest limp in his giddy up right now, but he's out there trying. He's trying. He got trapped a couple of times on those long runs where they basically just trapped and let the edge rusher come upfield. And the second they got right, I guess, parallel with John Rice Plumlee and the running back, what was his name? Baker? No, not Baker. Excuse me. Harvey. RJ Harvey. Or John Rice Plumlee would just release at the mesh point. Harvey would be gone. And they were just trapping, and they were using OU's aggression off the edge against them. That's essentially what they were doing. Really smart. I mean, we all know Gus Malzahn's offensive whiz. So,
and his offensive coordinator, Darren Hinshaw, obviously, I would imagine they were collaborating.
Yeah.
To some extent, knowing Malzahn's background as an offensive coordinator and play caller. But I'll give it up to them, man. They called a hell of a game today.
Yes, they did.
And they had Oklahoma on their toes with the amount of misdirection that they used, the different looks that they threw at Oklahoma, the way that they could attack the perimeter. It was a very well called game offensively for UCF. And the Sooners ultimately just had to hang on for dear life and ended up making just enough plays defensively to win the football game. Kendall Dolby came up huge, not just on that 2-point conversion, but he had several plays in that football game that loomed large at the end of it all. And you know who maybe made the most underrated play of the day is Austin freaking Stogner on that onside kick, because Jalil Farouk tried to give that one away.
I thought UCF got it. Honestly, once Farouk lost it, I was like, oh my God, UCF's going to get, oh my God. UCF's going to have a chance to go win the game.
It was a heck of a play by Stogner, too, because he had to,
When you watch the replay, Stogner didn't just fall on it. That dude dove for that ball. You can't even see Stogner in the frame when he comes up with it. It was really, for one, like two things, really good play by Stogner and a hell of a play by the UCF special teams. That was a hell of an onside kick. It really was.
Yeah, I was going to ask at the presser if that wasn't one of the bigger plays of the game, and that maybe we're not talking about it enough, what Stogner did. And I was going to ask BV that question, but I thought, people would be like, oh, well, Drum, Parker, they're just big Stogner guys, and that's why he's asking that question. No, I thought that saved OU's season. I thought that play is completely
because look, the way that
UCF's
offense was moving the ball, the fact that they only needed a field goal there to win the football game, they were going to get in field goal range.
Well, and
they got a good one. They got a good kicker in Colton Boomer.
Automatic. I mean, no doubt on all three of his field goals today. Automatic. Really impressive, which made the OU kicking woes even more depressing.
Yeah. Especially given the fact that his last name is Boomer. How do you not tamper with that guy this offseason? Joke. I'm not endorsing that. Just to be clear. I do not endorse and/or condone any illicit activity pertaining.
But somebody in NIL might endorse him here in Norman, Oklahoma soon.
It's just, but it is funny though that like the most obvious advantage for UCF in this football game today, the area in which they were so clearly superior to Oklahoma was the kicking game.
Except for punting, they were right. It was really, their punters sucked and start the game.
And we haven't even talked about this. This just kind of underscores how much Oklahoma struggled today when it came to punishing the opponent.
Field position?
Well, not
Yeah.
just field position. UCF's first 4 drives of the football game were 3-and-outs.
Mm-hmm. That's what I talked about early in the podcast. Oklahoma did not take advantage of it. How do you have 7 points? How is it 7-7 through 5, the first 5 possessions, when the first 4 was punt, punt, punt? Oklahoma, that's what I mean. It should have been, they had a chance to be 13-0, right? Didn't happen. At worst, it should have been 13-0. At best, it should have been 28-0.
UCF had 8 yards their first 4 possessions.
Yeah, they were minus
8.
4 the first 2. Minus freaking 4.
And at the end of it all, it's a
7
7-0
points
lead for Oklahoma. That's, again, it's applicable to so many things that happened today, but that right there cannot happen. Again,
so bad.
It's almost, in some sort of bizarre way, almost more reassuring. And again, I'm not trying to sound like the sunshine pumper or the optimist here, but it's somehow more reassuring than alarming that Oklahoma actually won this football game today, because it's hard to imagine them playing a worse game than that the rest of this season. And so if that was their dud, if that was the one that they mailed in, then they should keep a 0 in the loss column. We just can't see the same stuff repeated that we saw today.
That's what we said during the offseason. If OU went 0-5 in 1-score games last year. If they win a few of those, we look at last season differently. This is an example of one of those games where both teams didn't play particularly well, had chances to win, and OU wins. This is a game OU loses last year. That is impressive. That is encouraging. However, Kansas is objectively better than UCF, and that game is going to be at Lawrence. Oklahoma State, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, looks like legitimately good, and Ollie Gordon looks legitimately like one of the best, not just running backs, one of the best players in college football. That game's in Stillwater, and you still have to go to BYU. You still have to play TCU. You still have to play TCU. You still have to play West Virginia. Like, both things can be true. This is relieving and encouraging that OU won this game today. They simply have to play better because there are harder tests on their schedule.
And with these Kansas and Oklahoma State road trips coming up back to back, we're really about to see what this team is made of.
Yes.
Because there are I mean, the upsets are starting to hit. The big upsets are starting to hit across college football. We just watched North Carolina fall at the hands of a 1-5 Virginia team earlier today. Number 10, previously unbeaten North Carolina, loses at home to 1-5 Virginia. We're going to have games like that down the stretch where some of the titans of college football end up getting surprised, end up getting punked by less talented and less fundamentally sound football teams, because that's just the nature of the beast, and that stuff happens. And again, given that greater context for this game, I think if this was that game for Oklahoma, if this was that game where they're just off, you're thanking your lucky stars that Oklahoma found a way to come out on top today. And it is a credit to them, even if there are a zillion ways they can and need to get better. It is a credit to them that at the end of the day, they found a way to claw back.
Yeah, I agree with that part. I think these close games are going to help them down the road. I don't know how. I don't know when. But at some point, the fact that they're battle tested is going to show up. These games, and let's remember, this is a complete dichotomy, a complete flip from last year. Last year, all these close games, you lost. And you knew they were going to lose. Like, you knew they were going to lose. I caught myself, I even told Jesse, I was like, dude, I think they're going to lose today, because I caught myself feeling like I was covering 20. And Jesse and I talked about in the press, was like, this is so 2022. What's happening is so 2022 Oklahoma. Yep. But yet they found a way to win. And I think at the end of the day, good teams, winning teams, strong, sound, culturally built programs that believe in each other, believe in themselves, and just believe in general, notoriously come out on top. And I think after everything that happened last year, somehow, some way, Brent Venables and that staff found a little whatever in the back of the brains of these kids to where now they believe that they're going to pull off some sort of miracle moving forward. And they have. Texas, they have today. Is it sustainable is the question. I don't think you cannot play like this and it be sustainable. It is not sustainable. You've got to find some consistency on the offensive side of the ball. And I never thought there would be a day where we're saying a top 5 offense in the country, you have to find some consistency. And we all know we're talking about the running game, but
yeah,
they have to find it. They have to find it. To win down the stretch, to go into Stillwater, they have to find it. To win in Lawrence next week, they've got to find it. They have to find it because that game is going to be tough, tough, tough. It is going to be. Lance Leipold teams are good. I'm sorry, they're just good. And something about that game, if you're an Oklahoma fan, you should be nervous. 100% nervous.
It's completely fair to be nervous. It's completely fair.
Kansas could beat Oklahoma next weekend.
100%.
100%.
Yes.
Right now,
100%.
Yeah, that Kansas game is very losable. That Oklahoma State game the following week is also very losable.
I called it.
Again, I don't think it's going to be either of those teams that beat Oklahoma. I think it's going to be Oklahoma that beats themselves. Because if Zach Schmidt goes 0 for 3 instead of 1 for 3 on field goals today, and UCF wins that football game, what are we all sitting here saying? Man, the Sooners found a way to beat themselves today.
Mm-hmm.
They dug themselves a hole that ended up being too deep. And we would look back on all those little mistakes and a few very big mistakes. We didn't even talk about the coverage bust down the sideline. I don't know whether it was Woody Washington or Reggie Pearson that missed the assignment, but letting Javon Baker run untouched down the sideline for 86 yards.
They were in man,
to
and Woody busted down. Woody busted down on that.
That's what I figured. Mm-hmm. That's what it seemed like. But yeah, especially for a fifth-year senior. Again, big mistake. Not a little one. Big mistake. Mm-hmm. That cannot happen. So, you won.
That touchdown shouldn't have been a touchdown either, though.
Okay, well, sure. That's an entirely different conversation. You won. It was ugly. Made a ton of mistakes along the way. My overall standpoint / opinion on this football game is, okay, whatever. It's fine. Flush it. Don't do it again. It didn't cost you today, but you do the things that you did today further on down the road, it will cost you. There is not an opponent left on this schedule that will not punish you for the mistakes that you made today if you make a habit of them.
My thoughts, exactly.
Was it not kind of on par for Brent Venables to come in? And the funny thing is he said exactly what some of the people, we were talking to people on the field after the game a little bit, just kind of their thoughts of things, just right after the game, just kind of quick takes on their feelings after the game and the heat of everything. And he echoed exactly, without anybody saying anything, he walks in and he goes, man, I'm happy because I get to yell at a lot of people. It was a win-win. We won the game, man. I get to yell at a lot of people because there were so many mistakes. It's a good coaching moment and a good learning lesson for our team.
Yeah,
right off the bat, he said it without even ask.
You appreciate the transparency.
Yeah.
When a guy can walk in to the press conference and on behalf of his football team, stand up there and say what everybody is thinking, which is, we were fortunate to win that game.
Mm-hmm. Good learning lesson, but we won and gonna yell at everybody. Gonna be a lot. And he loves it because that dude just eats up the whole coaching and developing part of it. So that's that was like Christmas for him to see his team struggle a little bit after everything that they've been through 6 weeks. And I don't think he wants to do that every week. I think he actually enjoyed them being brought back to reality after the Texas victory a little bit.
And again, like I feel like it is what they need.
Mhm.
It is what they need to prepare for this stretch run, especially with those road trips to Kansas and Oklahoma State coming up. You needed a reminder like this one today, and it could have come in the form of a loss. It happened to come in the form of a really ugly win, which is a win in itself. But you needed a reminder that Texas is not the zenith of your season, and you still have business to take care of the rest of the way before you see those Longhorns again. Or guess what? You won't see those Longhorns again, right?
Mhm. So
Houston got hosed.
Yeah,
that's
did.
what I was
That
about to
was
say.
that was
Let's
very
kinda
poor officiating.
Houston
Yeah.
got hosed.
Dieter over there. That fourth down was just bollocks, dude. Just straight bollocks. He was a yard and a half past that, man. That's crazy. That was Texas Tech 2005, Oklahoma, where Danny Amendola gets tackled like 2 yards, 3 yards short of the first down, and the ref picks it up and moves the ball for first down, like just straight hosing in front of everybody, and it was a shame. But I think at the end of the day, and I'm not going to sit here and say that the refs did it on purpose, but you're naive if you don't think that the Big 12, despite the hatred for Oklahoma and Texas, they also know that Oklahoma and Texas are their only chances to make an extra $30 million or whatever it is, 70 million, whatever it is, for making the playoffs, right? Like, that's their chance. And they're both also the best chance for them to go to a New Year's Six bowl and send $10-15 million back to the conference before they leave. So, I don't think Oklahoma or Texas get any of that money. So the extra teams actually get it. And is that not correct? That OU and Texas, they do not get any of the money, do they? For going to the playoffs or a New Year's Six bowl or whatever.
That I do not know.
I'm asking Jesse because I thought Jesse might know.
I'm not honestly sure how all that works.
I thought I heard somebody say that, like, they're just not going to make any money, and like everything goes to the new members. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
I'll look. I'll
Yeah,
double
that's
check,
something
but
we
I
need to
can't
look
say right
into.
now. Okay.
So it wouldn't be shocking if the commissioner, everybody, we're sitting here going, no, they're just going to get screwed with officiating. OU in Texas, just get used to it. That happened last year. No, if that's really the case, and again, folks, we don't know if it's 100% the case or not. Just in theory, if that's really what we have been told and heard, then it would make sense for them to be like, let's go ahead and nudge them into those games. They are our best chance to do what we need to do to make some extra money this year because everybody's down. Everybody okay with that? Cool. All right, cool. And just kind of move on. So I don't know, man. Texas did not, but Ewers, if he's really out with the broken clavicle, that's tough because do we see Arch Manning? They talked about it. They said he got most of the reps with the twos, and obviously Malik went in there and handed the ball off. He didn't throw. But do you see Arch Manning moving forward, or is there a really good chance that you start to see him a little bit?
I don't think playing Arch Manning in 2023 is in Texas's plans. Put it that way.
I mean, I agree, but the announcer said he was this week going into the game. He was getting a lot of reps with the twos.
Yeah, I mean, but that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I'd almost expect a guy like that to get a bunch of run with the twos because how many snaps are there for the 2s versus the 3s in practice.
No doubt.
Exactly.
I'm just going. I just think it would be quite interesting.
I think the more immediate question as it pertains to quarterback situations, especially ones relevant to Oklahoma, is does Jalen Daniels play next weekend?
Supposedly he's playing.
Because if he is back, and the word on the street is that he will be back, and again, just adds a whole nother layer to the intrigue heading into that matchup.
And I'm going to give Brian Clinton his props because he said something really cool and really interesting on the instant analysis on what you were just talking about. Getting back Jalen Daniels is it's bigger because he's a better quarterback than John Rice Plumlee. So I want OU fans to understand this. If John Rice Plumlee made that much of a difference in UCF's offense, what do you think Jalen Daniels is going to do? So OU better come to play. That is, without question, the biggest storyline this week is the fact OU is going to get the first taste of a healthy Jalen Daniels. And quite frankly, that could be very scary for Oklahoma, because he's that good. He may be one of the top, he's a top 10 quarterback in college football when he's healthy, right?
I think Kansas beats Oklahoma State with Jalen Daniels, and I don't think that's particularly controversial, which is, I think Oklahoma State's playing really well, but I think Kansas wins that game if Jalen Daniels plays. Jalen Daniels is really good and does exactly all the things that could give this OU defense problems. So, yeah.
Very true. Again, needs to be a lot cleaner game next week in Lawrence. And it's apparently supposed to be cold and rainy too, which feels like every single time we make that trip to Lawrence, that's how it is.
11 a.m., baby.
I looked it up earlier.
Plus a Kansas stadium that's no doubt going to be a little bit rowdier than we're used to in the past. It's going to be interesting, man. Can't have Drake Stoops tipping interceptions to the other team this next week. Stuff like that. Again, going back to another mistake that we hadn't talked about yet.
Yeah.
And then
as good as he played,
out
right?
of character one. Completely out of character one. Again, can't have your most trustworthy dudes doing stuff like that on the road against the Jayhawks.
Okay. Real quickly, let's do our offensive and defensive players of the game. I'll go first with defense. I'll just say Ethan Downs.
Okay.
I mean, he had a sack. He had 6 tackles. I think he was 3rd or 4th. And I believe he was 4th in total tackles with 6. He had a sack. He had tackle for loss and 3 quarterback hurries today. He was very, very good. He was very tough. There was a series that he was just begging to come out and somehow, some way dug deep. They even slid him inside on the 3rd down during that series where he was like looking over at the tapping his helmet like, I got to come out. I cannot breathe. They call the play. He lines up on the 3rd down. And this was 2 plays in a row. He tried it in 2nd down. They wouldn't let him do it. 3rd down. And they slide him in to the 3 tech, and he almost sacks John Rice Plumlee again on that play, forces him to punt. And you could just see the life come out of his body as he starts to jog back to the sideline and just has to walk because he's just like dead at that point. So just his toughness, his leadership, his ability, he's leading the team in sacks. He's leading the team, or he's 2nd in the team in tackles for losses. He's having a magical season right now, and he had a really good game today, and one of the main reasons why Oklahoma won. So, at least defensively. So he is my defensive player of the game.
What about your offensive player of the game?
I said Sawchuk on the instant analysis, and I'll just go with that because I thought when Oklahoma needed the run game to come through and they finally leaned on him, he came through with a big play, maybe the biggest play of the game that kind of separated Oklahoma away from UCF to the point where they had to go for 2 at the end of the game. So I'll go with Sawchuk because I think he had a really solid fourth quarter when it mattered.
Jesse, you go next. I don't want to steal yours. I don't think I will, but I want to make sure.
Well, okay. In that case, I'll say for offensive, I'll say Nick Anderson. Just because I think what was most impressive about Nick Anderson today wasn't just that he had the 2 touchdowns. It wasn't just that he led the team in receiving yards with 105. I think what he did was, he made his first collegiate start today, and he came to fruition what a lot of us thought would happen when Andrew Anthony went out, which is Nick Anderson is going to see the bulk of the reps there. And he did. He saw a lot more snaps today. He tied for the team lead in targets with Drake Stoops. And I think he proved that he is a consistent, reliable receiver, even when he's not just scoring touchdowns. So I would say Nick Anderson. And then defensively, it's really tough because I honestly thought you had a lot of guys make an impact. Several different guys had a tackle for loss. But I'll say Trace Ford because he led the team in tackles for loss. There were a couple of moments where he was just really, really big. His pressure was really key in disrupting the UCF offense. It wasn't all great, but I think when you look at a defense that there wasn't one guy that necessarily stood out among the rest, but a lot of guys made an impact. You look at guys that when did they make big plays in critical moments? I think Trace Ford encapsulates that more than anybody else. I'm going to go Trace Ford.
Well, good. My 2 selections remain on the board, baby. I'll go back to a guy that I think I mentioned him as somebody that had one seminal climactic moment in this football game, but that's only a drop in the bucket of what he accomplished and contributed today, and that's Kendall Dolby. Obviously, the big stop on the 2-point conversion is the play that everybody's going to remember, but he made several big ones today defensively for Oklahoma. And on a day where the Sooners didn't have much going for them defensively in the way of stars and individual standouts, I give the edge to Dolby as my defensive MVP. And then offensive MVP, man, it's funny that we've gone almost the entire podcast without saying Dillon Gabriel's name. And I think it almost got lost in the milquetoast nature of this football game. But for what he was asked to do and the circumstances in which he did it, Dillon Gabriel turned in another excellent performance today. He hit on 65% of his passes, threw for 253 yards and 3 touchdowns. The interception was quite obviously not his fault and should have been a completion for a first down. So I fully absolve him of the responsibility for that turnover. And at the end of the day, he got a win that no doubt means a little bit more to him than the other guys in that locker room because of his history at that school. So it was a prove it day for Dillon Gabriel. And I think in as much as it depended on him, especially in a one-dimensional offense with a running game that was lacking, he did about all you could have asked him to do today.
Yeah, I totally agree. He's still playing at Heisman level, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, and he had 253 yards passing. He had how many yards rushing today?
22.
22, yeah.
But he got sacked.
Yeah, it's the sacks kind of
times.
I believe he was over 40, if I remember correctly reading it, as far as his 44 without the sack. So he had a good game running the ball too. So and he ran the ball in timely fashion when it was needed to get first downs, to extend drives, all that type of stuff. So he's such a good player, such a good leader for Oklahoma. He was the easy one, and that's why I didn't choose him. I'm sure that's probably why Jesse didn't choose him too. So Parker, we gave you the layup, and rightfully so. Yeah. And you finger rolled it in there. So anyways, all right. That's going to do it for this version of the OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners Postgame Podcast. Oklahoma won. I believe it was, I'm trying to look at the score, 31-29. 31-29 today. So in a game that Oklahoma probably should have pulled away, but a learning day it was for the Sooners as far as just being in the moment and present and not resting on your laurels. And you live, you learn, you move on. And now they have Kansas and Lawrence next week with Jalen Daniels coming back at quarterback. It will be a tough one, and we will have that covered for you on OU Insider, all the pregame, all the weekly leading up stuff. Jesse, Brian, Parker, myself, whether it's recruiting, whether it's team news, OU Insider is where you should go right now. You can sign up. Go to ouinsider.com. Sign up. $9.95 a month will get you the first month, right? And then $9.95 a month afterwards, all through the season. Or you can sign up right now and get all the rest of this season, all the recruiting news. And we've got some good recruiting news that Parker and I posted today. Really good news for Oklahoma moving forward. And there might be some more good news coming your way here in the next week, the few days. We'll see. We'll see what happens here. But look, we've got that covered for you on OU Insider. Everything, team, recruiting, softball, baseball, men's and women's basketball, you name it, we cover it on OU Insider. It's the place to go if you're an Oklahoma Sooners fan. If you want to be in the know, Oklahoma Sooners athletics, football, recruiting, basketball, whatever, OU Insider is the place to go. And right now, again, $9.95 a month, where you can sign up, $99 to get you all the way to this point next year, which means that's SEC, baby. You will get, 7-8 games into the SEC schedule if you sign up today for 2024. I mean, you get it from now, October 21st, all the way to October 21st, 2024. And that's a deal. To me, that's a deal. So go right now to ouinsider.com, sign up. We would love to have you join the thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of other OU fans that are already on there talking 24/7 OU Sooner sports and recruiting. It's awesome. We would also like you guys to give us a thumbs up on here. We would like you to subscribe to our YouTube. We're over 13,000 subscribers now on YouTube, and also 5 stars on our podcasting platform. Thank you guys so much for listening. Again, that's it for this version of the OU Insider under the Visor Sooners Postgame Podcast. For Jesse Crittenden, for Parker Thune, my name is Brandon Drum. You guys have a blessed day.